Welcome to Nourishing Conversations with Nicole and Christine. I'm Nicole Rascal, a journalist and certified culinary nutrition expert here in the French Riviera.
And my name is Christine Kilbag. I am a registered nutritional therapist, a Pilates and Extend Bar instructor here in the Riviera.
We created this podcast as a way to showcase the plethora of health and wellness products, people, services that is here within the Côte d'Azur. And we thought we should not only help small businesses get seen and recognition, but also because it's fascinating. We could talk for hours.
We could talk forever about this subject. So do join us on our podcasts.
And let's jump into the episode. So welcome. Today we are going to be talking about antibiotics and antibiotic resistance. And we have none other than a very popular homeopath with us today. Julia Edgely is a working homeopath in Moansartou, and she has an excellent program about helping people, especially kids, get off of or find alternatives to antibiotics. She also has a very popular Instagram page where she does lots of lives and talks about toxin-free cosmetics. So make sure to check out Julia Homeopath, on Instagram. So welcome, Julia.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So let's talk about antibiotics. And they're amazing. They've saved so many people's lives. We need them.
Yeah.
But we've also had them overly prescribed, overly used, and now we're looking at antibiotic resistant strains of bacteria that nothing seems to kill, and it's winding up killing people. So
yes,
explain that a little bit. Why are we in this situation?
So to understand antibiotics and how we've gotten to antibiotic resistance, you have to understand that antibiotics have only just been very recently discovered in terms of modern medicine. It's only in the last century. And it was at a time where all disease was a difference between terrain theory and germ theory, whereas everything pathology in the body is to do with outside, so the germ, and not how our body processes. So now medicine is starting to really come about and think, actually, it's a mixture of both. So there was this
as we learn more about the microbiome and what's happening.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So at that stage as well, there was only really little known about the bacteria. There was bacteria in the body, but not what it does. Not these days that we know it's an organ as well, a microbiome. So there was looking for something that would kill off the invader, the pathogen, and that is a bacteria, and that was what antibiotics were used for. Over time, and like you said, that has saved millions of lives. And even to this day, they do save lives. They are incredible. I respect antibiotics so much. That's why I don't want you to use them. That's my saying.
Okay.
Because what happens is antibiotics only work against a bacterial infection. What is interesting is they do have a slight anti-inflammatory function that is only recently developed. So they can look like they're working against a virus, but they're not killing off any viruses. So what is happening now is antibiotics are being given when it's a viral infection. Now we know about the microbiome, it's killing off a certain percentage of our microbiome, enough to create this imbalance for pathogenic bacteria and inhibiting the growth of or killing off good bacteria.
We need that good bacteria because most of your immune system is in your intestines. Is that correct?
The terrain theory, we now know that your gut flora will protect you against further bacterial infections. So the reason we're getting resistance is because our bacteria will adapt to, any bacteria will adapt to it. Yeah. So now that they're adapting to certain there's different types of antibiotics, adapting to them, they're not working anymore. So they have become very intelligent, the bacteria, pathogenic bacteria, going, right, I just keep growing. You can give me as much as you want, and I'm just going to keep developing. And that's the problem that we're in now, because it's not just necessarily the antibiotics. This is the problem we're facing that are being given prescribed to us. It's in our food. It's in the environment.
Yeah.
So actually it's more, go ahead.
I was just going to say that because of these, this antibiotic resistance, what I like is that you are approaching mothers with young kids and teaching them from a young age, because it's the young kids and the older people over 60, to be fair, plus those that have
Good point.
immune imbalance, immune down regulation of their immune system, that are going to be most at risk from any bacterial infection that they pick up.
Exactly. And actually, I really brilliant that you brought up about over 60s, is because I am now warning that over 60s overuse of antibiotics can lead to C. diff, which is very complicated to treat. So I'm always talking to my patients over 60. I'm like, you need to be wary of these, and always get tested if you have. Is there any sign that you have C. diff?
Mm.
Can you explain what C. diff is briefly?
I'm not great at pronouncing it. So Christine, could you pronounce that for me?
Is it Clostridium difficile?
There you go. It's very pathogenic. It creates what looks like
bacterial infection.
It's a bacterial infection of the lower intestines. It creates blood, bacteria, pus, oozing, all of this. Yeah.
Sounds nasty.
It is very nasty and quite difficult to treat. I love as well that you brought up about children, because with children, this is why I talk about treating kids all the time. One, because children respond very quickly and I'm impatient. So that's fantastic. But also because the first 3 years of a child's life, anybody's life, our lives, governs how well our immune system is going to work later on in life. Yeah. And the 3 aspects to make sure you have a balanced microbiome is how you're born, how you're fed, and if antibiotics were used.
Yeah, and apparently antibiotics are the leading cause of emergency room visits for children.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and they also end up with the potential side effects of like the allergy reactions, the fungal infections, the diarrhea, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, antibiotics is the leading cause of emergency room visits for kids. They're reacting against the antibiotics.
Yeah. That's what I was saying to you, is like, when people think antibiotics, it's a conversation everyone thinks has been had. It's like, oh, well, this kills off your gut flora. It's like, I was saying to Christine, that is actually the best case scenario. There is far more side effects than we think. I was actually looking at research about depression and anxiety disorders following on from a dose of antibiotics. Now, correlation does not necessarily equal causation, but there is a link. And if you think of the anxiety children these days are suffering with, it's not just about the microbiome. There's a lot more to them.
Yeah, well, there is that massive connection, isn't there, between the gut and the brain? So however you treat your gut's going to affect your brain too. Yeah.
My father had a terrible side effect from an antibiotic for a urinary tract infection after a prostate procedure or something he had, and it actually gave him foot drop, which then caused a whole bunch of other things. So he found this entire strain of antibiotics that he's not allowed to have.
Yeah,
because he had physical, muscular, and tendon reaction.
Yeah,
I guess it like dries up the tendon until it just snaps.
I can't.
And you can no longer lift your foot.
Yeah,
it's been a nightmare for him.
I think that's similar to the antibiotic that was used to treat Helicobacter pylori. I think so
because it's a very common antibiotic.
Yeah,
but there's thousands of people that have this reaction to it.
And if you look at the side effects of antibiotics, one of them is like outbursts of anger. We're talking about like one is foot drop, the other one outburst, and one was Helicobacter. I had that reaction. It's really not fun to be around. And I was like, what is wrong with me? This is not me. Like I'm blunt, but I'm not. I don't think I'm aggressive. So I looked. I was like, oh my god, it's known.
Interesting. It's interesting. And I don't know if people are really told the full possible side effects of most drugs, actually.
And to be honest with you, when your body's fighting off a bacterial infection, it's scary, because like you said to me about a UTIs, lower respiratory tract infections, they're things you don't mess around with. So even if I have patients in contact with me, exactly, septic and sepsis, and I was thinking, like, they would even, for me, I'm like, okay, we need 12 to 24 hours to get a reaction, otherwise we need an antibiotic, and then we figure out, again, terrain theory, why you're getting these. So there are things you don't mess around with, and this is why I think it's really empowering when you're trying to avoid the antibiotic, is to teach people the red flag symptoms, to know what you're looking for when you need to see the doctor. They're not the end of the world.
Seeing about that in the sort of the older population, because I myself are in that generation, but even menopausal women, I am seeing a lot of menopausal women with
UTIs.
And vaginal dysbiosis. And when you go over the timeline, the amount of antibiotics they have been prescribed over their lifetime, but never been told how to then support their gut afterwards, through diet or even the simplest thing that they can do in the pharmacy is give you a probiotic as well to take either after or separate from the antibiotic, to protect them a little bit. But, you know, this is only recent they've been doing that. So these people that have grown up over the last 20, 30 years haven't been given the probiotics as well. No. So.
And it changes through generations. That's how you see the microbiome, the profile goes through generations. Not to say that's genetic. No. You know that about, like, it's not that genetic, but you can see, and why, because as a child, the skin to skin, you're exposed to the microbiome of a parent. It goes through generations.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the alternatives and what you do. And you have a thing called the ABC method.
Yes.
What is that?
So I'm a homeopath, so I use homeopathic remedies, and historically homeopathic remedies, in my opinion, have really shone when it comes to viral and bacterial infections around the world. So if you want to look up past research, you can look at the Society of Homeopaths, and you can look up the Homeopathic Research Institute. They have past papers to demonstrate this. So I use a specific method of homeopathic remedies because, and just to give a reason why, is I have a lot of parents, as Christina was saying that, or you were saying that, come to see me, who are freaked out. They can't learn a whole system. They're overwhelmed. So I broke it down to a strategy. So I have 3 stages to what we call an acute, whether it be viral or bacterial. Majority of it is used for a viral infection. As I said, the problem with antibiotic overuse and misuse is that it's used in viral infections. Yeah. There is no time doctors are not testing mucus to see if it's bacterial or viral. So they just give the antibiotics. And that's the problem we're in. And the other alternative nowadays, which seems like, so I'm going off tangent now, it seems like a benefit, like, oh, we'll just watch and wait. But that's not the problem either, because as the body is really struggling to fight off a viral infection, and there's a reason for that, then there can be the secondary bacterial infection, and then they end up getting the antibiotics. So I break these acute disorders into 3 stages. So there's the inflammation stage, there's the mucus stage. It was actually called the suppurative stage, but no, I couldn't even pronounce it quickly. So we call it the mucus stage, and then there's the recovery stage. When you break these down into 3 separate stages and have remedies for each stage, it becomes very easy and very accessible to anybody who's really wanted to use homeopathy but found it really confusing. And that's the whole methodology broken down.
And how can people go in and find your program?
So it's on my website, it's on my Instagram profile, and if you look up Julia Edgely ABC method, it will pop up in most search engines.
And they can follow this program in their own time when it suits them?
Anytime. Right. You have unlimited access. It's 7 video modules, but there's also downloadable transcribed workbook, so you can have that. And then afterwards, which the reason why I've been doing this for over a decade, but the reason I never brought it to a course is because I needed people to follow up. There's always those, it's a bit like the French language, but so now I have actually the ABC community, so it's a follow-up group that anyone can ask questions, and I'm there to support, going, no, this is now you need to check up and see a doctor, or I think it's this. You can't diagnose online, but you can really support. And I'm quite impressed of how quickly parents have picked this up and individuals have picked this up. But there is ongoing support with it.
That's great. And so how young can the child be to be able to use these homeopathic remedies?
Any age whatsoever. Right. Usually it's from 4 months. That's the patients that I usually see, because it's always around 4 months. I'll tell you why. The teething starts, and so the kids will get this cough, and the doctors think, oh, okay, this is an infection, and I understandable. It's a 4-month-old baby. They're cautious, but I'm like, no, it's a teething cough. Give these remedies, and then you can manage it.
So if parents are sensitive to this and they don't want their child to be unnecessarily given antibiotics, obviously they go to the doctor first.
Yeah,
there's an issue, and if the doctor just quickly writes a thing saying, here's an antibiotic, we'll see if this works, is there something they can say to the doctor? Should they ask at that point to say, look, is it really necessary? Are you sure it's a bacterial infection? I mean, are there questions they should have at the doctor's point to just say,
ready,
are we sure this is what we really need to do? Can we do something else first? Obviously, if it's a real infection, yes, but
I'm about to say that when it's a real infection, you see it. So have the red flag symptoms first. The real infection can be the signs in the child. There has been a prolonged over 10 days immune response, whatever we're saying, if it's viral or bacterial. They have this thick, sticky mucus. It usually smells. Very pale, dark circle. Another for me indicator is the up and down fever without using paracetamol, because paracetamol will make fevers go up and down and actually prolong a viral response. But if you see the viral fever coming up and down, you have the smell, then they're signs this is a bacterial infection. I have seen kids with these symptoms and it's been going on for days, nearly a week. I'm like, they need an antibiotic now. There's just no energy. So if you're going to a doctor with those symptoms, you know what you're dealing with. If you don't have those symptoms, ask the doctor straight out, is this a bacterial or viral infection? If they say they don't know, going, well, how can we check? Yeah. Exactly. And then you can just ask,
or rule it out. That's a good
rule it out. Very good phrase. Term.
Yeah. Can we rule out a viral infection?
Yeah. And then you can ask, is this the only treatment we can give? What else can we give? Now, at the moment, the fashion, it's not the fashion, what's the word? The new trend is to give steroids, which they have their other.
Yeah, because it makes the kids seem better right away.
Exactly. So at the moment when it's viral, they're giving steroids. When they think it's bacterial, they're giving antibiotics. But you can always ask those, one, know the red flag symptoms yourselves, and two, ask, can we verify? What's the phrase you said? Can we rule it out?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And can I ask?
I've had to use that term just to get the doctor to actually investigate what was actually going on.
You have to understand, sorry, because to say this quickly, doctors don't have a lot of time. Like I do have a lot of compassion for doctors, the pediatricians and doctors I work with. They have 15 minutes. Yeah. They haven't got the resources. Like it would make sense to have a lab just close by. Okay, test the bacteria, test the sputum, the mucus, and we'll see. They'll know, but they don't. And also there are certain rules they have to follow. For example, this may have changed now, but as far as I was aware, if it's an ear infection, they're obliged to give antibiotics, even though over 80% of them are viral. So there's certain rules. So I understand why they're giving, but they're willing to work with you if you work with them, as far as I've the experience I've had. I'm not sure about everywhere.
I was going to ask with if there's an idea of a timeline. So with your remedies, I know it's going to be different from child to child and what they're suffering with, but roughly, how long would it take for the remedy to kick in? And effect?
I love this question because, let me roll my sleeves up here.
You
shouldn't. No, not necessarily. It depends if the child's never had what virus they have, if they've never had antibiotics or if they have had antibiotics. So everything you need to know about remedies. This is the thing with homeopathy is people think you give the remedy and it instantly goes away, the miracle cure. And that's the exception, not necessarily the rule. Generally, you want to see signs of remedy reaction, that it's progressing in the right direction. So for example, if I have somebody ringing me and they're like, oh my God, they had thick yellow snot and there's no other signs of bacterial infection, I'm like, right, give Hep or Sulf. They ring me then about a few hours later going, right, it's become a lot fluid, has gone white. Right, that's a sign that
everything's going in the right direction. Just in a matter of hours.
Just in a matter of hours. Okay. Now it can, like I said, there's 3 stages to acute. So you might need different remedies over a few days. Although if you get the stage 1 remedy very early, you can avoid the other stages, but it can over a few hours, but you want to see progress. That's the main thing. You want to see progress. Usually with a fever, parents want homeopathy to stop the fever straight away. What I want is that you want an effective fever. The fever goes up, it stays, and the child's comfortable.
So can we just interject here the reason for fever?
Yes. I was actually talking to another podcast and I was like, maybe I've got this wrong, but they don't, the exact reason, we know we need a fever to kill off pathogens.
So it's a positive sign.
But they don't really know exactly why. So in theory, in homeopathy, it's like certain pathogens, this is what I've observed, have a certain fever and it kills it off. Like for example, what am I thinking of? German measles and chickenpox, I'm thinking in French, always has a 39-degree fever. 39-40, whereas Coxsackie virus is 38. And I've always seen the pattern, obviously it can depend on the patient, but the fevers are there they're called stage 1. They're the stage 1 great sign that your immune system is working. And you want an infection one. You want one that comes up, it stays, it doesn't go up and down and then goes away. That's it. Very straightforward.
Yeah. So that's when you took out sweating it out.
Yeah, exactly.
So for parents, it's a very scary thing when your child has a fever, and you have to be careful of not letting them pass too high of a temperature, because then you have to.
But that's the thing.
But the other thing is you don't want to constantly give fever reducer so that they never reach the effective part of a fever. Yeah.
And this is where I observed over the last decade is giving paracetamol or Doliprane or Tylenol or Calpol, those parts of the world. it prolongs the viral reaction.
Yeah.
And so that's when actually like the whole system is drained, and then you get the secondary bacterial infection.
Yeah.
So I thought I was the only one. Being a homeopath, I'm like, well, nobody listens to me. But I thought maybe there's other people in the medical community observing this, and they are observing it. They don't know how, and they don't know why. Well, we kind of, with the fever thing, we understand.
Yeah.
They are observing it as well. There's talk about it. And so funny enough about the high fever, and that's usually in children for febrile convulsions, is that can be generally it's high fevers, and it's to do with the speed that the fever comes on. It's not the temperature. You can get some kind of 38 or 39, and it's generally in the family. So if you have a parent or somebody in the family that has that, and then you have to observe your children. And so it's the speed of the flip that causes the problem. And a one-off is very scary. It's not the most dangerous. It's you having more than one in a 24-hour period. That's when you have a problem.
When you say one-off, it's just spiking and then going away, or
spiking, and then you have a child who then convulses and then it stops. So that's actually what doctors and that's what parents, are very frightened. And I completely understand that. So that's why I want the group. If you're a patient of mine, I'm always on call. Like, right, I'm going to talk you through this fever. So there's always that support. It's not. I always wish there was a course on. I know there's first aid courses for parents, but I wish there was a bit more about a health course, so you felt empowered and understood the signs and symptoms.
Not feeling totally helpless and just running to the hospital because you have no idea what's happening.
And if I make the wrong choice, am I going to kill my child? That's the fear, a big fear in patients.
Absolutely.
Yeah, understandable.
And if there's any doubt, always call the doctor or go to the hospital.
Yeah, don't even ring me. Just ring the doctor.
Yeah. Or go straight to the hospital. Jump in the car.
Don't be afraid to bother them. Yeah, exactly.
Take us through just an example. I mean, you have said, you wait and you get in touch with looking at the different types of mucus. But if someone is doing this program, they're learning first about signs and symptoms. They're learning about these red flags. What is the treatment like? If for people who don't know anything about homeopathy, what do they do? What is the...
Okay, so homeopathic remedies. So I'll go with homeopathic remedies. I give little granules. So the little round balls, they come in various dubious forms. Homeopathy, I was laughing with the patients as they can come in white powders, it can come in flat pills, but generally it's the granules, and they are made from various different sources, and they're diluted down of substance. Some of them can be plants, some of them can be minerals, some of them can be animal products, and they are made into a homeopathic remedy, and you'll generally get them in a tube, or if you're a patient of mine, a bag, little granules. And then as soon as you get your symptom, you take one granule, stick it under your tongue, and it will melt. And that's how you take the homeopathic remedies. In an acute, your body uses up the substance very, very quickly. So I repeat this every hour. And that's what's great is that, for example, medication, you're like, can I overdose? You can't, in my opinion, in an acute, you can't overdose in homeopathy. The worst that could happen in homeopathy is that the remedy is a very deep curative remedy for you, and you get a return of all symptoms like eczema or something like that. But that's actually a great sign. But I wish more people knew it. But that's what the remedy is.
It comes back and then goes away, or that it...
Exactly, yeah. It's like, oh, I've got this flare up. What is this? It's very rare. It's happened to me a few times. And that's when people say, do you have a quick minute? Like, what's this remedy? Like, without your case, I don't know. Because it happened to me one time with a little girl. I said, just take sulfur. Rang me the next day, head to toe in eczema. I was like, oh God. It's like, was there eczema in the history? Oh yeah, I didn't tell you that. So now I'm like, no, I need to know a bit of a medical history first.
Yeah.
That's fascinating, because I think a lot of people don't even believe in homeopathy and think, it's just whatever, just sugar pills. But I mean, as you have just pointed out, your body does use it. It can have amazing.
There's loads of new research.
It's the oldest source of medicine. So the fact that people don't believe in homeopathy, people were mixing remedies before medicine was even invented. That's
actually, it's around the time. Homeopathy, the actual system that we know now, only came about in the 18th century. But what happened was it's based on principle from thousands of years ago that you can either cure with opposites or you can cure with similars. Homeopathy means similar suffering. So it gives you some, for example, belladonna. Belladonna is, if you took belladonna, you would look like you were having a high delusional fever. So we give belladonna in those substances, in those instances. And that's why the B in ABC is belladonna. So that's how you choose a homeopathic remedy. It looks similar to your symptom picture.
Okay.
And the reason why it's controversial, if anyone's listening to like, why are they saying controversial, is because the substances are diluted down so much that technically there's nothing physically, chemically in them.
Yeah.
but there's new exciting research to debate that mechanism, which is very exciting.
So in the example of belladonna, is it the idea that just that tiny little nuanced touch is enough to create the right immune response, that your body sees it and is like, oh, this?
Yeah, it kind of gives a step up.
In theory,
I always think, I think it energetically, it gives your whole system like a leg. Do you call it a leg up in the
yes,
leg up? It's a bit like a leg up. It's like,
translating.
Yeah. So it's a bit like a leg up. And it's like, right, we'll give it a bit more energy so it can do what it needs to do. And it supports,
which is the concept of supporting holistically the body.
Exactly. It works with your immune system rather than suppressing it.
Okay.
So would you say, if we go back to, you gave an example about sulfur and the eczema, we've got lots of sulfurous items in our kitchens. Many of us do anyway.
Yeah. You won't get eczema for them, don't worry. I'm not touching that broccoli.
But things like sulforaphane in microgreens, which we know, we're able to find them much easier now. In garlic, for example, the allicin from garlic and something,
which is a natural antibiotic.
Yeah, great. Yeah. So could people try with these? Would they have a positive effect in your opinion?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. Because remedy reaction is not just exclusive to homeopathy. You can use it for any holistic, more natural, supportive approach to treating the immune system, as long as you know that the body's going in the right direction.
Yeah.
So garlic is definitely one of them. The other one would be honey. Honey is incredibly curative.
Yeah, as long as it's natural.
Raw honey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. The other one would
not
be
store-bought honey.
Yeah.
No, non-pasteurized.
Yeah.
What's the other? I was thinking, so, like gargle with salt water. If you have a really bad throat, you gargle with salt water. You can even flush your nose with salt water as well, and that can flush out. It's more to do with bacterial rather than viral.
Yeah.
Viral, you want to support the immune system. You want to support because it's a different process. So that would be garlic. That would be anything, bone broth.
Yeah.
I'm drawing a blank.
I'm a big fan of sulforaphane because I have read that it actually destructs and breaks down the bacterial membrane. Eats away at it, chomps away at it. So I'm a massive fan of sulforaphane.
Oh, do you mean anything with a bit of a broccoli or a Brussels sprout?
Exactly. The broccoli
you
stem.
Can't go wrong.
They should not be throwing broccoli stems out. It's more potent.
I put them in my curries.
Yeah, great.
Oh, that's good to know.
I love just chopping them up and eating them. Give us a quick rundown of some of the top foods for sulforaphane.
It's all the cruciferous. So it'd be the cauliflower, the kale. The microgreens are richer. So if you are able to find someone that is growing microgreens, they're going to be much more potent in their sulforaphane content than the actual vegetable. Yeah, exactly.
Kids would love growing them.
They would. So
they do. Yeah, they do. So our first podcast episode, you can go back and look at it, was on microgreens, and she was talking about broccoli microgreens.
Yeah, so I in an ideal world, there should be a nursery growing microgreens in every town, city, village in the country, so everyone had
community gardens.
But as Elsa has explained herself from the nursery, it's actually very easy to grow them yourself at home. So that would be one thing that lots of mums and dads could try doing with their kids and have a bit of fun with it.
Interesting you're saying this, because I literally just over here, you can see where my hand is, I have my sprouting for my garden, my cauliflower, my kale, my spinach, red cabbage, and cauliflower, and broccoli.
I've also got my kale seeds.
I miss having a garden
as well. Yeah.
Well, great.
Just needs a little bit of cooler weather actually, our end, to help them along.
Yeah. It's heartbreaking growing broccoli.
So Julia, tell us one example of maybe a case of one of your patients that was like, wow, this really is working. I love what I'm doing. Like something that one of the, I'm sure you have many, but
I do.
One that comes to the top of your mind.
Is there a case that sits deeply that you think?
For the ABC method? Well, I'll tell you, the ABC method is the reason why. So I have multiple cases because everyone thinks with kids that all kids, just you get an antibiotic and that's it. But loads of kids with parents would say to me, "No, my child's never had an antibiotic." And I would just this is years ago, start the ABC method, go over very briefly, they've always stuck with it. Like, nope, never ever had an antibiotic. So that shocks a lot of people. Most recent, because I launched the course only last year, was a mum who said to me, I haven't been to the doctor, I haven't needed to go to the doctor since. And all friends were like, why do you never go to the doctor? Because I know how to do it at home. And it's always, the doctor's even like, where have you been? So that is quite, it started off, I'm talking about kids, but the ABC method actually started off with an adult. It was the parent of a patient who said, I'm coming down with something. I have a meeting. I cannot be sick. What do I have? Okay, what do you have? So you have ABC. ABC is a common combination of homeopathic remedies that's used for teething.
What is the ABC stand for?
Okay, so ABC is called aconite, belladonna, chamomilla. They're the three main remedies that you would give for, there's a few others actually, onset of a fever. So I put them in combination, which is not classical homeopathy, but from decade of doing the methodology.
And is this your own program that you've done?
The whole program, yes.
Okay.
I know other homeopaths who have given ABC in the past, but the whole, like the 3 steps, I don't know. I don't think I know any of the homeopathies doing that at all. I'm making it down so it's really logical. Mm-hmm. I always do this. It's strategic. It's not classical homeopathy, but it is the step that it introduces parents to. Oh, now I want to learn about remedies and actually what's the sign, what's the symptom, and I can now, when I say, for example, if you have a child who, no matter what their symptom is, they just want hugs and they're clingy, that's a pulsatilla child. Now they have time because they have the relief. They're already giving the homeopathy. They're not worried like, what if I'm going to give it? What if it's wrong? What if it doesn't work? They're already supporting the body, and then they can see the pulsatilla symptoms. Like, I can see these symptoms now in real life. It's not just theory in a book, because homeopathy and practicing, in my opinion, if you're very new to it, can look very theoretical, but you want to put it into real life. So
my dad was a chiropractor and part-time homeopath. He added it as something to his thing. And the thing that was so fascinating to me is anytime I would feel like I was coming down with something, he would pull out his book and he would run through these questions, and it would be questions you would never think.
Yeah.
How are you feeling? Are you clingy? Is the patient despondent, or even positional things like, do they stretch out their legs, or are they more curled in a ball? It's really when you really go into homeopathy, it's fascinating, all of the different minute little signs.
And that example, can you imagine if you were a mom, your child was ill, and I was ringing you saying, what way are they drinking their juice? Like, were they eating? And you're like, they have a fever, just give me something. So that's why I came up with the strategy. But yes, that's what you want to do. You want to observe those they're mostly symptoms.
I was a pulsatilla child.
Oh, you're a pulsatilla child. I'm a pulsatilla. Don't leave me. Why are you leaving? You have to go to work? No. Yeah, definitely there. You probably weren't like that. I am.
No, I wasn't too cleaning, but I definitely was given pulsatilla a few times.
Yeah.
So.
I shock a few homeopaths, because there's classical homeopathy, there's different branches of homeopathy, there's different methodologies, and they would say that you were born with one homeopathic remedy and that's your only remedy. Like, I call it the one remedy that rules them all. So that's very classical homeopathy.
And is that idea that if you're ever out of balance throughout your life, you just take that remedy?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So now we're doing more to do with layers. That actually, modern living, there's loads of layers, like drug layers and nutritional layers, and we have to look at all of that. And if anyone's listening to this and they know homeopathy, I come across as very phosphorus. You know homeopathy, you must know phosphorus. It does nothing for me. Mine is sulfur. Anything I have, give me a sulfur 10M, and I just bounce right back. Yeah. So it's quite interesting. So that's where kind of sometimes studying homeopathy can be, it's your greatest, like, you're constantly learning, because like, this person looks like a lycopodium, and you give it to them, it's like, oh my God, it's doing nothing. What do I do now?
Interesting. And the good thing about homeopathy is that you can play around with things, because you're not going to have toxic reactions or side effects or anything like that. Just
a slight positive aggravation, not positive in the moment, but it's a good thing.
Stirring up some deep-seated things. Yeah. If people are interested in doing this and they aren't anywhere nearby, and they want someone who they can actually come to at all hours, like let's say in the US, they can't.
Yes, I do.
At the same hour. Who or what do they look for? Do they look for a registered homeopath? How does someone find a good homeopath?
So look at your local register. So usually what people's like, where do I find a register? So look for your colleges and in your universities in your country, and they will mention a register. So in the UK and Europe, there's different registers, and so you'll find a local homeopath. And also word of mouth. You want to know what approach that homeopath takes, because like I said, there's many different avenues to homeopathic treatment. So find out which homeopath resonates with you. A lot of homeopaths now work online. So I have like patients around the world, but if you prefer someone local, go for word of mouth. That would be good. So that you understand what approach they're taking.
Okay. And is there a certain degree or certification, or it just varies by country? Or
it varies by country, and that is I have a license and I have a degree. And so in certain countries, generally, to be registered in the medical system of the country, you have to be a doctor in that country. Other countries, I would be a doctor. So it depends on around. Generally, for example, a lot of people think it's a weekend course, but to be a fully professional license, it's taken me 6 years.
Yeah, it's very complicated. I mean,
it's very long.
It's similar to Chinese medicine because there's just so many facets and layers and tiny little things to know.
And they say you're only like a real homeopath after 25 years, and I've only been doing it for 16.
Yeah, I
so
believe
I have
that.
still a few years to
only
go.
16.
I believe that because it's similar with nutrition. I mean, there's so many short nutrition courses, and people think that they can go out and tell everyone else how to eat. I spent
you have to know
5
the nuance.
years just studying about nutrition, and I still feel like I'm a beginner despite having all the case studies and the clinical stuff afterwards. It's just once you open that can of worms, that learning doesn't stop
ever. And it's your patients that they're the biggest teachers.
Exactly.
Every case you learn something new.
So yeah, definitely looking for someone registered. I say that is the big word.
And word of mouth too, because you know, if lots of people, there are lots of people who are registered and practice and don't see results with people. So you
have to find someone who resonates. I think that's even the same with doctors. Find someone who resonates with you.
Absolutely.
And I'm a big believer in having a team. Have your holistic, your for a truly holistic health, if that's where you want to support your health, have your nutritionist, have your homeopath, herbalist, have your team around you, your osteopath, chiropractor, and even your doctor. And everyone kind of, you'll see a pattern that they'll all get on. You can imagine if they all went out for a drink together, would they get on? If they say yes, it's a good sign.
And as you were saying, when
when
you have your team, it's actually really nice. This morning, I recommended that a lady contact Julia because I felt it was more her competency than my competency. So it's nice to have that.
Yeah,
it's nice.
And your course as well.
Yeah,
your cleanse and reboot. I say check out cleanse and reboot.
Yeah. So and that leads into maybe I'll talk about you and skincare and toxin-free skincare because that
was my thing for ages.
Yeah, it was, and it still is in a way because you also that was kind of the way you helped yourself, wasn't it? As well.
Yes. So a bit of homeopathy is going back. So this leads into homeopathy brought me to this. When you're analyzing a case from a homeopathic, and it's the same with nutrition as well, you're looking always at the origin of your symptoms. Are the symptoms coming from a weakened system or is there an external factor? And these are different in homeopathic terms. They call them exciting cause or maintaining causes. So I spoke years about everyone, even women, more specifically women, but everyone needing to change their personal care products. It started one night 12 years ago, I think, and I just wanted thicker hair. It was pure vanity. I wasn't thinking about my health at all. Looked at all this research, and I do love, like Christine and I agree, like I love looking at research. I love reading research papers.
We are a bit nerdy in that respect.
Oh, it's so good. And you get a decent one, you're like, this is good. And so I looked at all this research about the ingredients. I'm like, I knew about it. I was a homeopath already. It's like, I knew about this, but to this extent. And so when you've seen the research, you can't actually put the products on your skin anymore. So the next day I'm like, no, I can't do it. Swapped everything immediately, which not everybody can do. And I had previously
just to interrupt. So you're talking about harmful chemicals that are in most of the over-the-counter
cosmetics, personal care products, shampoo, toothpaste, all
makeup,
this. It's shifted a lot. I have to say over the last decade of when I started, the ingredients are really, the European Cosmetics Directive is really starting to slowly change things. So there has been a huge shift, but still I was talking to the environmental toxin nerd, which I think Christine knows as well. And she was saying it's unless we change the testing limits, there's always going to be a problem with these new ingredients coming out.
Exactly. And some of the new ingredients are as bad or if not worse.
Oh, yeah.
There's
no research. Ones. There's nothing. No, there's no back and forth.
And when someone puts something on their skin, a lot of people don't realize that your skin absorbs everything directly into your bloodstream.
Yeah.
process. So if you are slathering on a bunch of chemicals every single day,
it is going to be in your system.
Hair care products, lotions, any kind of ointments or creams or anything. It builds up day after day after day.
It's built up day after day after day. So, there was originally there was that quote that the dose is not the poison. The dose is the poison. About how much you put on your skin, or how much of a chemical you may get in one go. Yeah. Would determine the effect, but it's not that. It could be micro amounts on, just
when you think of
exposure
hormones
on a daily basis. Exactly.
Yeah. So and that's what the testing, that's what everyone's trying to, scientists are trying to recommend the testing limits, because the limit of testing of these ingredients is to produce pathology. So it's like, oh, well, this is the limit now. There's no pathology from this, but they're actually not looking at what it is doing. It just doesn't kill off something. That's all what they're looking at now. So that needs to change. And but there is, I mean, historically, a lot of people would say, would you just stop using products? But we've always decorated our body. And I don't want to if I say to a patient, just stop using makeup and they like it, I'll just like, well, we'll find a different alternative. There's great brands out there now. That's the fantastic thing. Yeah. There's great brands out there.
For the longest time, and possibly even now, there's still a certain amount of lead in red lipsticks.
Yeah.
I don't think many people even realize that.
Yeah, the amount of lead women are eating on a daily basis just by licking their lips.
Daily basis, yeah.
And it's very political. That's the thing as well. People forget is that the cosmetic directive, unless it's changed the last time I looked, it's to support the consumer and the business. So they want business to go out like to crumble. So it's always so you have to, yes, it's there to protect us, but you have to make the decision yourself and research your own ingredients. I actually have on my website, if anyone's interested, I have my top 10 of what I would recommend you eliminate, you avoid, I want to say.
Yeah.
Great. That's a good resource. Like the dirty dozen.
Exactly. That's a great list. So easy to remember. It's always the same, really. Spinach, strawberries, apples.
Strawberries, apples. Yeah, the top things, make sure you buy organic.
Yeah.
So going back to the ABC method, if people are interested in this,
yes,
they can go to your website, they can sign up for the program, they can learn it. It's not just for parents with kids.
No, not at all.
Anybody.
Yeah, if you are.
And it's really just understanding the different steps of being sick, what the
immune system is naturally trying to do, and you support it at each step. So naturally,
what's a natural part of your body saying, okay,
exactly,
this is
and why it's doing it.
Getting better. Okay.
Yeah.
And I have a question. Can they do they use the protocols just when something happens? Because I know a lot of people start taking something and then they keep taking something. Yeah. So, for example, echinacea is one of them. Now, we know that it's great for the immune system, but you're not supposed to take it every day.
All the time. No, it's not a preventative. No. ABC method is when you have it. So that's the difference between your innate immunity and adaptive immunity. So viral infections, and even to a certain extent bacterial infections, there's an adaptive immunity to it. It's mostly viral. But actually what you want is, you're looking at your innate immunity, that's preventative. So you're looking at lifestyle. The ABC method is when you're ill. And I'm just preparing a reel. We were talking about reels. I hate doing these things, but I'm preparing a reel to kind of discuss prevention versus cure, and actually why you need both. Because prevention is all about stress. It's about diet. It's about, remind me, Christine, my head's gone. Diet,
well, it's everything. Your sleep. It's it's everything that you do on a daily basis, isn't it? So it's your exposures.
Now, if you've had a shocking event or lifestyle, you're moving house or something, and all that goes to the wayside. Yeah, exactly. Your immune system will I don't want to say suffer. What do I want to say?
Or react.
I don't want to be dramatic. It will react. And so you don't want to be, okay, right, you'll become ill. But so you don't want to take something that will make you even further, kind of then impede further your innate immunity by antibiotics and doliprane. So that's why I'm like, you need a cure. I don't care if it's the ABC method or whatever. Yeah. Just have a natural cure that supports your immune system.
Great advice. And it's so important for us to be more in touch with our body, to know, okay, this type of mucus that's starting to just,
if it glows in the dark, nose, it's not great.
And so there are signs. And I
glow in the dark mucus.
More in touch with my body, because my parents were always, whenever I'd be sick, I just know I would have to, this was before texting, but I would have to tell my parents, okay, my snot has turned yellow, and they're like, okay. Okay, do this. And then, if it was ever coming out green, I'd be like, oh crap, all right, we need to do something.
Flush it out.
Yeah. And then I would be like, I'd call up my mom and be like, oh, it's gone clear. Good.
Yeah. We love, is it running? Is it constant running? Is it going to get your nose? That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So it's important.
I love mucus,
people are more in touch with their body. They know the different signs, and
it's really empowering. You don't have that anxiety, that health anxiety, because like, okay, I know what the body's doing. And equally, like you're saying, it can take time. There's a few things I think people expect just to get. It's modern living. If you're a parent, going back to kids, if you're a parent, or even if you're an adult and you cannot take time off work, there is that feel of, I need to get quickly well yesterday.
Get better.
And that's one thing I wish society could change, is that you're allowed to properly rest. Because like I said, this is the recovery stage. You do that well and you won't get sick for the rest of the winter.
Yeah.
But we don't do that too well.
We need to give our bodies time. Time is a great healer.
Yeah, exactly.
Rest.
Rest.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what you see in winters with patients, is that like come September, sounds weird, but I'm like, I want everyone to get a bit of a cold in September, because you want to get it early, get your body, get those antibodies, get that exposure. But if you don't treat that right, and then this always happens. So they'll take the antibiotic, or they'll take the Lemsip is another one with its low level paracetamol, like I'm totally fine. I'm like, it's gonna, so I hate to, I am the bearer of bad news.
Come back and bite
I'm like,
you.
I'm going to hear from you in 2 weeks. And they're like, no. It's like 10 days to 2 weeks, and we won't put money on it. And they always come back. It's like, oh my God, it's come back. And it's like, it never left. It was just hidden. And so then you can, so if you don't have a homeopath, or you're not aware of this, what happens then? You take the antibiotics and the Lemsip again, then another dose of antibiotics. And then you get the real side effects of the antibiotics.
And you're in this brutal cycle.
Yeah, there's another layer to it now. It's not just your immune system was slightly weakened and it couldn't fight off a virus. You now have permanent change to your microbiome.
Yeah. It's a bit like throwing pesticides onto the grass and destroying not just the grass, but all the different types of weeds that are there. And some of them are positive ones and some of them are not so positive. But that's what an antibiotic would do. It will just wipe out the whole lot. So you've then got, if you keep repeating that, you've then got to grow a new garden.
Yeah. And it takes time. I have a lot of people, I didn't expect that last year. Like the child was already on the 4th dose of antibiotics. And this kind of why I'm happy with the group. I'm coming up with another mini course, because I'm like, right, if you've already had all of this, yes, we can still use the ABC method. Your stage 2, the mucus is going to last a lot longer, because your mucus membranes is linked to your gut flora. And so you'll constantly have this.
I would assume, I don't know if it's been tested, I have no idea, but I would assume that the different types of mucus have all different types of bacteria in it.
Yeah. Well, different types. It depends on the patient.
Flora.
Yeah. Your your microbiome is all the way through your body. Yeah. It's not, we know about the one in the gut, but it's actually all the way through. There's one in the lungs. Everywhere. Yeah. Yeah. They now know the one in the lungs, to protect your lungs from any pathogens, is directly linked to how well it is in your gut.
Fascinating. There's so much more we need to learn about it.
The research these days, like Christine will know this, is fascinating. Even for herbs, they now know that how we respond to herbal medicine is that it's how your gut will digest the herb and release a secondary compound. And it's the secondary compound that is the active form. Did you know that?
So the study of the microbiome is actually a new science.
Yeah.
So
and doctors still don't say it's an organ.
No,
it's an organ.
Yeah. And when you were talking before about time, it's a bit like when I try to explain to my clients about trying to rebuild their microbiome, it's a bit like thinking about when you're laying down a new garden, if you do have a garden or even a terrace, the first year, you might not get anything. You're doing the planting, but you might not get much flower. It might just, it's there, but it's not doing much.
Yeah.
But over time, so the 2nd and 3rd and 4th season, more and more starts appearing.
Yeah. And
the growth gets better, as long as you keep feeding it the right things and you don't keep.
Really interesting that you brought that up. I just had this conversation with somebody on Instagram, and what they were saying about foods they wouldn't eat. And it was all about margarines and raw butter. I'm like, Christine knows I'm very allergic to dairy products, really allergic to the protein dairy products, got hemiplegic migraines. And so when I was just cooking, I was like, right, I'll do margarine, but I didn't want to eat it. And it's taking me, I'd say 6 years, like a really 6 years of dedication of working at my gut. And I now can have raw butter. I don't get anything. Whereas that's when you're talking about time, it's like constant work in it. No, I'm not living like a saint. I mean, Christine's seen that, but I don't live like a saint. But yeah, it takes dedication and just time. You're not doing anything wrong if you're not getting better in a few months. And that's my slight issue with the probiotic, is that we are in a consumer mentality thing of, I take the probiotic, I'm fine. It's
and we know as well,
and I'll get better.
Yeah, we know now it's also about prebiotics, probiotics, and postbiotics. Yeah. I mean, there's it's a massive spectrum.
Go back to broccoli.
Yeah, exactly. Go to your garlic and your sulforaphane and
exactly. Bit of a stir fry.
And kombucha. Do we have an episode on that too?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic!
And the raw honey we do.
And raw honey.
Oh my god, that's so good.
Yeah, we're touching on all of our previous issues here.
And we have all of them in the region as well. It's a great, like we have everything in this region. It's just brilliant.
We do.
Now we just need to get the wine on.
Oh god, yeah. Have you got a wine person?
Maybe we could find a natural wine person.
Yeah.
In the region.
Yeah.
You need someone from Chateau de Bern.
I have contacts with Chateau de Bern.
Well, there, because I did wine tasting there, and great conversation, very interesting.
So listeners, watch this space.
Watch this space. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Can we do a tasting? Sorry.
We'll invite you, Julia.
That would be really interesting. We'll do a microbiome positive wine tasting. That works for you, Christine?
Yeah.
I could just vision where that could go.
That would be really good. We definitely have to
maybe a bit of a reach that. All right. Well, thank you, Julia. We'll have the links to your website
Thank you
below.
so much for having me.
And again, if someone is with a child who spikes a fever, absolutely see the doctor, go to the hospital. But look into this program and make sure before antibiotics are prescribed that the doctor is sure that it's a bacterial infection. Just ask, open conversation with your doctor, and then they look into alternative things to make sure that we're not overusing them. Exactly. They are important. They're wonderful. They save lives. We like them. They're overused. Right. All right. Join us next time. And if you liked this, please like and subscribe and share it with your friends.